We want the same outcome for your child. I am interested in your child being the best that they can be as you are. So we're on the same side. So let's see how we get there from here working together. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So let's look first at student relationships. The first thing I want to talk about is things that you can establish in having a good year. And all of you know, the ones who, even if this is your second year to teach, the first couple of weeks of school are a complete litmus test for how the rest of the school year is going to go. Because if you don't grab control, and especially with preschool, if you don't grab control of that class early on, if you try to get it at Thanksgiving or Christmas, it's an uphill battle. I mean, you've got to really establish certain criteria right off the bat to give you the foundation you need to move forward effectively. The first thing I always look at is establishing expectations. Now, it's really tough for those. How many of you teach 3-year-olds? How many think a lot? How about 4s? Okay, about easy. Oh, have you got a kindergarten teacher? Okay, great. It gets easier with this as they get older because communicating certain abstract sort of ideas with them is tough because their learning and understanding is so limited, especially at 3. But it's so important when they come in to let them know that these are your expectations, that this is what is acceptable and this is what is not acceptable. And you know, the way you present that is going to be different according to what age you have. But regardless, and I mean, this is true if you're teaching middle school or high school or 4th grade or art or you coach, whatever. I mean, to set those expectations right off the bat and make sure they have an understanding of it. And with that, to have guidelines. Now, the expectations, I think, more of your expectation of their behavior, their respect of you, the way that they interact with each other. Guidelines, I think of more as we don't push at the water fountain. And we only go one person at a time in the stalls of the bathroom. You know what I'm talking about, all that kind of stuff. The do's and don'ts kind of things, the day-to-day routine kind of things. We wait to get our trays at the cafeteria. The things that aren't going to show them as being necessarily respectful or disrespectful, but just the getting through the routine of the day type thing. I mean, those you start picking up pretty early as well. This is the big one, is consequences. And to let them know going into it, all right, we've already established my expectations of your behavior. I've already outlined the guidelines of how you are to conduct yourself as we move from art to music to the playground, whatever. And if you fail to do so, these are the consequences. And I think it's so important that these are the same throughout everything that you do, that there's some consistency there. I have been in situations, and not necessarily in my current school, but just in different situations as being a neighbor to someone on either side of me. One thing I hear a lot is where teachers will say things to the effect of, well, if y'all don't want to be watching, we're not going outside. Now, you know full well what you're doing outside. You're not going to stay inside with those kids. You take the punishment when you get stay inside. But they, and this is the same with mom and dad. I mean, teaching a class is so much like raising your own children. I mean, it truly is. They realize so early on, regardless of how young they are, that you're gonna stand behind the words that come out of your mouth, that they have meaning, that they carry weight, that you're going to follow up. They figure out within a week. You said that yesterday. We went outside. Give me a break. I'm going to take it a step further because you basically you painted yourself in a corner you can't get out of. So it's one of those things. Don't write any checks you're not willing to cash kind of principle. If you're going to threaten to do it, be prepared to do it. And it should be that way all the time, to have that sort of consistency, consequences and consistency. If you're not going to tolerate it the second day of school, they know you're not going to tolerate it the 100th day of school or the 150th day of school. This is a non-negotiable, folks. This I will not accept. This is unacceptable behavior, and even if mom is here, ooh, perfect day. Ooh, we've introduced Mama. That's interesting. But there's got to still be those expectations that, you know, if Santa Claus walks in the room, I am still in charge of this classroom. When you go home, Mom is in charge. When you're in my classroom, I'm in charge. There's a difference. Mom is our guest. Mom is our visitor. And when we talk about parent things, I communicate those things to parents, just like I do to children. When you have back to school night, these are the things that and I do this in a nice, believe me, I'm extremely approachable, very down to earth, but I'm very structured also, and I'm very particular about the way things take place. So I find that parents are willing to do that if you just communicate with them clearly, and the same thing's true with the children. Once you have all of these things established, your expectations, your guidelines, the consequences, and the consistency, then you have developed your authority. Now, I put these in a certain order for a reason. If you put the authority first, it's hard to have the authority until you've done the other things first, especially with young children. They don't know what authority is. And if you're teaching threes, you're a new face to them. You have a little bit of advantage if you're a four and you've just been a couple doors down and they kind of know who you are. But God loves the 3-year-old teachers because you don't know who you're getting until that first day of school. You can't look down the hall and say, oh boy, that one's staying this year. It's a crapshoot as to who you're going to get that first day of school. You might know a family that's coming, that kind of thing, but by and large, you look at a list of names before school starts, you have no earthly idea what you're getting into. So, for 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, in a face that they don't recognize, they're not thinking authority figure necessarily. You've got to create yourself as an authority figure to them. And when you've done these other things prior, and I'm talking about within a day, these can be done. I mean, it's not like this is going to take you 3 weeks. I mean, when you do these things first, then you have established, I am the alpha female in the class. And I'm sure each of you have taught some secondary alpha females in your classes that I know I have. That I always wanted to be, you know, I always tell subs, look, if you have a question, ask Liza. Okay? She can run the class if you need to step out and do whatever. You always have those kind of children. But you've got to establish yourself as the authority figure first. And this is one thing I do, and I think this is what really elevates one teacher above another, and what causes teachers to really stand out is when you go the extra mile, because we could stop right there. And you are the teacher, they are the students, you teach, they learn, and that is the end of our interaction. You are there to absorb what I'm doling out to you, and then you're supposed to and either get it, or you're supposed to duplicate it on paper and a worksheet, whatever. And there's a lot of teachers that do that. But I think with young children in particular, for those 7 hours a day, you are mama, you are daddy. You're the babysitter, you're the grandmother, you're the nurse, you're the doctor, you're the psychiatrist. You're the police. You're everything to them. And I find that one thing that curtails discipline problems is when you have a strong bonded relationship with your students. I like to think that my students behave out of love for me personally. They want to please me, and they behave because of that. I will tell you that I have never once sent a student to the office. And I don't say that to put myself on some pedestal. I'm just telling you, I've never had a discipline situation that I did not handle within my classroom. Other than having a situation where someone's playing doctor on the playground, I've never had to call a parent for a discipline. We'll get that in a minute too. Because these things have been established, and these children know, I care about you, you're important to me, I care about you as a human being. You're not a commodity to me. You're not what draws a paycheck for me. I care about you. I have a vested interest in you as a person. And when you have that with your students, when you have that closeness, they will walk through fire for you.